Okay guys, so this is going to be your first video and your trial run at writing down the definitions as I go through them in this recording. Okay, so let's start with what is geography. If you broke down the word geography into two parts, the first part would indicate Earth, the second part would indicate field of study. So when you put these two portions together, what you wind up with is the word geography, which means the field of study of Earth. Okay, and so geography describes both the physical and human aspects of life on Earth. We are going to be starting with physical and then transitioning to human as the 9 weeks moves along. Okay, next word, cartography. Cartography is the science or practice of drawing maps. And what this guy is right here, he's a professional map maker, which means that he is a cartographer. Okay, cartographers and geographers use different tools to gather information when studying about the world. So what are these tools? Some of these tools are GIS and GPS. GPS is something that you should be very familiar with because it's something that most of us use in our everyday lives. But what is GIS? GIS looks like this. GIS can be maps that have various types of information on them, including things like customers, streets, elevation, land usage, sometimes even multiple layers of them on one map. Now, GPS is something that you've seen before. Most of us have it in our cars or on our phones. And not only do they give us the addresses in that form of location, but they can also give us location through the use of latitude and longitude, which is something that we'll be getting into next week. All right, remote sensing. Remote sensing is gathering and recording of satellite information. Okay, so here you have a satellite that is remote from Earth and it is remotely gathering information. Now, aerial photography. I'm sure you've seen aerial photographs before. They look something like this. When a photograph is taken from a bird's eye view or up in the sky, we call that aerial photography. Aerial meaning up in the sky, and of course, well, basically your photograph. All right, so some maps that we use, you don't need to write anything down on this slide, are topographical, physical, political, climate, resource, and thematic. Now, these are maps that geographers use as tools. We will get into the specifics of these maps in further slides. So here are some examples, topographical and physical, and here you have an example of a political that could also be a thematic map. Okay, map projections. Obviously, we know that the world is round, it's three-dimensional, so how are we going to transfer this information onto a flat surface like a paper? Well, it's very difficult. It's impossible to take a round Earth and make it look flat without stretching it or messing up part of the Earth. And so when we transfer this information into a flat surface like you see right here, what happens as a result is that our viewing of it gets messed up, and this messed up part is called distortion. Okay, so there are several different ways that a map can be distorted. It can be distorted by area, which means the size of the land masses will change. The shape of the land masses can also change. The distance between land masses change, and the direction between land masses changes. Okay, so distortion is when a map gets messed up because you're changing a three-dimensional world into a flat paper surface. Okay, different types of projection maps. The first one we're going to cover is Mercator Projection. This one, if you take a look here, they kind of try and roll out the world in a cylindrical form to make it into this rectangular shape. And so it's going to have the least amount of distortion in the middle and the most amount of distortion at the polar ends. The next type of projection is polar projection, and that's when we see the map from the polar view. So we have a map, these maps that look circular because we're looking at a polar view of Earth. The major problem with this projection is that you don't see all of the Earth at the same time. Next, this is the Robinson projection, the last type of projection that we're going to discuss today. This is a compromise projection. Okay, so you can kind of see it's curved like the polar. It's also flat. So let's see. It minimizes distortion, and it is most often used for data representation because of this minimal distortion. Next up, parts of a map. So map title and map legend, obviously whenever you have a map, we need to know what it is that we're looking at. In this case here, the title of this map is Middle East. Map legend. Now a legend is what is going to tell you what all of the symbols inside the map represent. Here you see capital city, other cities, mountains, and I know it's a little difficult to see there, but oh, here it is. Deserts, these little dots, okay? So your map title is this, and your map legend tells you what all of the symbols in the map represent. Next up, scale. So a scale, it's what we use to measure the map, but it's supposed to tell us, okay, so if it's 2 inches here, what it represents in a real world scenario would be 200 miles. So it's like a ratio thing. It tells us how far it is in the map in inches or centimeters, whatever it is that that map is using, but it also tells us, okay, in the real world, this is how many miles this length represents. Okay, so a scale is a unit of measurement on a map to help us find out the actual distance in that map. So there's your scale. Next up, you have a compass rose. Now, a compass rose helps us find the cardinal directions on a map. Okay, so a compass rose can often look like this. What are cardinal directions? Well, cardinal directions are your north, east, south, and west directions. Okay, so your compass rose will tell you which way is north, which way is east, which way is south, which way is west. A lot of compass roses also show you intermediate directions, which are northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. So intermediate directions are the ones that are in the middle of cardinal directions, intermediate, okay? The grid system. What is the grid system? The grid system is a pattern of crisscrossed lines. Here we see those two words again, latitude and longitude. So it shows us latitude lines, longitude lines, where they intersect. They cross each other to form what looks like your grid paper from math, right? That's your grid system. A framework of crisscross lines. Okay, so let's get into the different types of maps. Different types of maps show different types of information. The first type of map that we're going to discuss are physical maps. Physical maps show physical features using shading, relief, or different colors. So here you can see mountain ranges, you can see valleys, you can see rivers, you can see elevation, you can see all kinds of stuff on physical maps. Basically what they're doing is showing us the physical characteristics of the land that's being represented on that map. Next type of map that we're going to cover is political maps. Political maps show political features such as national boundaries and borders. Now, this is going to be all of your man-made stuff, okay? So here we see the different countries. Now, country borders are definitely man-made. They're not often, yes, you have your natural borders, but they're still determined by man, okay? These maps are also pretty cool because they can show you how political borders change over time, okay? So here you see 3 different maps of Europe and how these borders changed after World War II and even after the breakup of the Soviet Union. Population maps. So you have different types of population maps. Population distribution. What this map shows you, the more dark the red is, the more people live in that area. So distribute. Where are people distributed in the world? Okay, where do most people reside? And so you'll see here in these super cold parts of the world, there's not many people that live there, okay? But in these heavily populated areas here like India and China, you're going to see the most red because that's where the most people in the world are distributed. Okay, so population distribution shows how the population of areas is spread out. Population density. Now, population density is a little bit different from distribution because what it's showing us is, okay, yeah, there's a lot of people that live here, but how close together do they live? You see here, let's compare again India and China. Now in India, yes, you have a lot of people distributed in this area and a lot of people distributed in this area, but now let's take a look at how close together they live. Here you see the darker colors showing people in this area are way more crowded than say people here or people in the United States, okay? So it's basically telling us how crowded are these people. This one shows distribution shows where they are. population density shows how crowded people are in that area, or how many people are concentrated in one square area, 1 square mile or 1 square kilometer of that area. All right, so next up, climate maps, and it is what it is. It's going to show us what the different climate regions are in that country. Another important thing to remember climate and weather are very different from each other. Climate indicates what it is like there over a long period of time, and weather is daily. As we know, sometimes it does rain in El Paso. It doesn't mean that we have a rainy climate, because it doesn't happen very often. Okay, so vegetation maps. Vegetation map shows us the type of things that grow there. Here you have Africa. This is going to be your jungle area, the Congo and whatnot. And up here you have the Sahara, right? So here you see the legend, and it's going to outline everything for you. It shows what plants grow in that areas that have not been significantly altered by human activity. And as you see here, vegetation is closely tied to climate. Look, they can overlap, because here you're going to have tropical wet, and here you're going to have the most vegetation. Makes sense, huh? Okay. Next up, special purpose maps. Special purpose maps are designed to show a specific type of information. In this case, you have two maps that show religions and world languages. So this will show us, okay, what religions are dominant in these areas, and then this one shows, okay, what do people speak in these areas. So basically, thematic maps show us different things. They can indicate a lot of stuff. I mean, if you wanted to know what people's favorite color was, that's something that you could also show in a thematic map. Economic activity map. This is going to be our last slide. It shows how countries use their resources to produce goods and services. So here you have a map of China, and it shows us, okay, which areas are basically people who hunt and gather, which area shows commercial fishing, which area shows manufacturing, so on and so forth. What economic activities are present in that area, that map can also show that. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.